Hi, my name is Sarah Petlawani, and I will be doing a presentation on deafness. The IDEA definition of deafness is a hearing impairment that is so severe that a child is impaired in processing linguistic information through hearing, with or without amplification. The phrase with or without amplification is clarified to mean that a hearing aid will not provide sufficient accommodation so that the student can be successful in the classroom. There are three different ways to classify deafness. The first classification is in regards to onset of occurrence, some being born deaf and some acquiring deafness after they're born sometime. The second type of classification is in regards to language acquisition. So prelingual deafness occurs at birth or early in life before speech and language have developed. And postlingual deafness occurs after the development of speech and language. Some believe that the dividing point between these two classifications is somewhere between 12 and 18 months. And the third classification type is according to the hearing threshold levels. The hearing threshold levels is measured in decibels. Each decibel that a person cannot detect indicates a certain degree of hearing impairment. So the higher the number of decibels, the less hearing a person has. And a 0 decibel designates the normal person's average hearing. The prevalence of deafness, according to the U.S. Department of Education, public schools identify 0.10% of populations aged 6 to 21 years of age are deaf. More than 50% of the students receiving special education come from diverse backgrounds, and of that 50%, 30% of them are Spanish-speaking homes. And between 2 to 3 out of every 1,000 children in the United States are born with some degree of hearing loss. Additional statistics, 90% of deaf children are born to hearing parents. This statistics show that children who are born to hearing parents have more of a challenge in school. 5 out of 6 children experience an ear infection by the age of 3. An ear infection is one of the causes for deafness. Another cause for deafness is noise, and 15 minutes a day exposure to severe noise can cause some type of hearing loss. Many people wait an average of 7 years before seeking help once they notice signs of hearing loss, and approximately 3 million children in the world have hearing loss. There's several different causes for deafness. The first cause is genetic, so 50% of all incidences is genetic. Autosomal dominant hearing loss means that one parent carries the dominant gene for hearing loss. There's a 50% chance that if the one parent carries this dominant trait that the child will suffer some type of hearing loss. The autosomal recessive hearing loss means that both parents carry the recessive gene for hearing loss, and there's a 25% chance that the child will have hearing loss. And the X-linked hearing loss relates to the mother carrying the recessive trait for hearing loss on her X chromosome, which means she can only pass it to female children. Acquired cause is the second type of cause, and this isn't a cause that appears after birth as a result of a disease, condition, or injury. So here's a list of possible ways that a person or a child might acquire hearing loss. And notice I put headphones because nowadays, children listen to music way too loud, so it's definitely going to cause some type of hearing loss in children. There's different ways of identification. There's 3 different ways. The screening test is computer technology to measure the autoacoustic emission. This is the amount of sound emitted into the ear. The 1-3-6 rule is that babies should be screened at 1 month, followed up by 3 months, and then if they have signs of loss, they should be entering in a family intervention program by the 6 months. Pure tone audiometry establishes threshold for hearing at different frequencies, and speech audiometry is test detecting and understanding of speech. These are several different characteristics that we might see in a child who experiences hearing loss. Oftentimes they have difficulty communicating, and so these are several characteristics that we might see. Social and emotional characteristics. They tend to focus around communication. So sign language is a huge part of communication for the social aspect. Inclusion in the classroom can often result in students dealing with not having peers in their classroom that they can relate to that are deaf as well. About 90% of children who are deaf that have parents that are hearing are not proficient. Their parents are not proficient in sign language, which makes communication even more difficult. And the deaf culture refers to a culture that the deaf, several people, or most people who are deaf live within this culture, and they have different social norms. They value higher physical contact during interaction with one another. They also tend to be more frank in their discussions, and they get to their points quicker. These are educational considerations. These are a few websites. Parental suggestions: get your child screened early and often, get educated. There's examples of books that can help parents get educated. There's a few websites about seeking support, learning how to communicate with their children. These are my references, and that's my presentation. Thank you.